PowerPoint Slide 1. Title: The Price of Exclusion. Publicity and Marketing Campaign Considerations in Building and Maintaining Relationships with Individuals with Disabilities.
I think it's happening. Yes. Okay, so I'm here to provide some insight on how to effectively reach this largely untapped market once these accommodations that Joan was speaking to and more of these tactical initiatives are in place. Keeping in mind that your approach should remain as committed and ongoing and adaptable as you would with any market, addressing this broad community's needs and concerns and interests, again, as you would any.
Slide. Title: Recognizing Community as Global Markets. Point 1. Massive and burgeoning community with burgeoning purchasing power. Point 2. Half the planet, not just one market.
So first, and you have a sense of this from earlier presentations, but it's important to understand and recognize the scale and the breadth of this community. I mean, there are over 57 million adults with some form of disability, and it's a largely untapped market, again, of people who command over $1 trillion in consolidated buying power and disposable income collectively. So we're talking about a massive and growing community, the largest minority group, in fact, in the world, even surpassing the Hispanic market. And more so than other markets, this includes not only individuals with disabilities themselves, but their significant others and their friends and their families, whose activities are to an extent guided by their companions' lifestyles. So once you account for all these added markets, you're looking at almost half the planet.
Slide. Title: Value to Your Business. Point 1. Viable Markets. Brand Loyalty. Point 2. Advantageous Position. Point 3. Important cultural statement.
And so with this in mind, I think this community should immediately become a crucial component in every marketing and public relations plan. I mean, you'd essentially be leaving money on the table. You'd be doing your institution a disservice not to recognize the value in connecting and not to recognize this community as a viable market niche. I think it's also worth noting that individuals with disabilities have proven to be incredibly brand loyal, especially to fully accessible businesses, which are unfortunately still in the minority. So here's an opportunity to uniquely position yourself and make a powerful cultural statement about inclusion and awareness.
Slide. Title: Press and Marketing Materials. A photograph showing a diverse corporate advertisement with 5 people, including a woman using a wheelchair. Point 1. Internet is key, the place of accommodation. Point 2. Exercise special care with language. Point 3. Leverage diversity of your consumer base. Point 4. Redefine disability.
And in generating materials, I think it's important to keep in mind, and Joan kind of touched on this a little, is that the internet is increasingly valuable, especially for people with disabilities, many of whom are not as mobile. So as the place of accommodation, the internet and your website provides you with added opportunity to expand your reach. Unfortunately, many businesses still struggle with accessible sites, and again, when text is obscure and sites are heavier on non-captioned images and Flash, your site immediately becomes exclusionary, and screen readers cannot be as effective in relaying information. And also, as you know, especially when working with markets within a minority group, paying special attention to preferred language becomes increasingly important. So, people with disabilities should never be identified or defined by their disability. And in that same vein, words like special needs should be avoided, as it suggests there's a burdensome need there, when instead it's really our delivery and our accommodations that need to change to be fully inclusive and fully accessible. And as with all PR and marketing campaigns, you must leverage the diversity of your consumer base and your potential consumer base. So images and materials should be a reflection of your markets, and in this case, the images should serve to empower and redefine disability to represent qualities like inclusion and strength.
Slide. Title: Furthering Visibility. Point 1. Enlist in awards campaigns. Point 2. Align with disability organizations. Point 3. Regularly pitch listings on special opportunities for people with disabilities. Point 4, demographics of your staff should be a true reflection of the diversity of your market.
And going beyond what is legally required, I think makes a really powerful statement about your institution's core values. And I think it just sends a signal that you really get it. I find value in entering awards campaigns, once you're in a position to do so, of course, for added recognition and added exposure, especially within the communities of people with disabilities. For example, the Access Awards, Helen Keller Achievement Awards, Ruth Green Advocacy Award, et cetera. And I think it can also be helpful to connect with a national or local disability organization to see what opportunities there are for partnerships to generate added exposure and to capitalize on their platform and their existing consumer base and their networks. Art Beyond Sight, for example, and the mayor's office for people with disabilities. And then pitching items and listings to the media on these special opportunities and special tours and special days for people with disabilities is invaluable, I think, and should take just as much priority as the other events you're doing year-round, because these opportunities are really, they're extremely valuable for individuals with disabilities who can find solace in not having to worry about accessibility that day. And I'm also going to use this opportunity to note the importance of ensuring that your team reflects the diversity of your markets, not only because of the value of having these firsthand contributions, but while unemployment amongst individuals with disabilities is high, statistically their turnover rate is actually low and they have higher rates of retention.
Slide. Title: Realities of the Market. The cover of a novel, No Pity, by Joseph Shapiro.
And while it's key to incorporate this community into campaigns, it's just as important to keep your finger on the pulse of the evolving needs and concerns of this global market as you would any. I wanted to just quickly share an anecdote from a book, No Pity, where author Joseph Shapiro dedicates a chapter to the demise of Everest and Jennings, the once leading wheelchair brand that was essentially overthrown by a new brand that entered the market. So quickie wheelchairs kind of came into play, and they were more nimble, and they used colors, and they were essentially just generally more in touch with the needs and the changing interests of this community, allowing for their ultimate hold on the market. And then lastly, I just wanted to end with a commercial that you may remember from the Super Bowl a few years ago, which generated an outpouring of support and meaningful dialogue, and even added revenue for Pepsi. And I think my AV guys have to press play on that.
On screen, a Pepsi TV commercial plays with no sound. The on-screen narrator and actors are all using American Sign Language. The narrator signs, "This commercial was created and performed by Enable, a network in PepsiCo which supports diversity and the inclusion of persons with different disabilities." In the commercial, two deaf men in a car are trying to find their friend's house on a street of dark houses. One finally blows the car's horn, and the lights go on in all houses but one. That's the one they know is the home of their deaf friend.
So I think it's important that this marketing team recognized the value of targeting and including people who are hard of hearing in their marketing plan and put substantial resources into exercising that core value. I mean, Super Bowl ads are not cheap, and I think they understood that you have to speak to everyone if you want to be heard. And in closing, I just think that what kind of began as sporadic pilot campaigns to target this demographic has now become or should become a vital part of every marketing and PR plan. And most of you already have a grasp on the tremendous opportunity with this underutilized market, and I just hope that this serves to re-emphasize the value in dedicating real time and real resources into this outreach. And that's all I have.